Every single day, you drive with compromised headlights, and you don't even know how dangerous that actually is. Studies show oxidized headlights can reduce your nighttime visibility by up to 80%. That's not a cosmetic problem. That's a survival problem. So what do most people do? They grab one of those $10 polishing kits from the auto parts store, spend 40 minutes buffing their lenses, and feel pretty good about themselves for about 3 weeks. Then the haze comes back. Every single time. Today, we're ending that cycle permanently. We're going to break down exactly why those retail kits always fail, why silicon carbide sandpaper combined with a ceramic coating is the only solution that actually works, and how to do it yourself with industrial-grade results. Stay with me, because this changes everything. Before we talk solutions, let's talk about why this happens. Because once you understand the enemy, you'll understand why half measures never win. Modern headlight lenses aren't made of glass. They're made of polycarbonate, a lightweight, impact-resistant plastic that automakers adopted in the 1980s. It's strong, it's cheap to mold into complex shapes, and it saves weight. But it has one catastrophic weakness: ultraviolet radiation. Polycarbonate absorbs UV light and begins to oxidize at the molecular level. The factory applied a thin UV protective coating when your car was new, but that coating degrades over time, typically within 5 to 7 years depending on your climate, how much direct sun exposure the car gets, and whether the vehicle is garaged or sits outside. Once that protective layer is compromised, the polycarbonate beneath starts to break down. Polymer chains at the surface fracture and scatter light in every direction instead of letting it pass cleanly through. That's the cloudiness you see. That's the yellowing. That's the haze. And here's the critical point: it is not just on the surface. It has become the surface. The damage is structural, not cosmetic. This is precisely why a polishing compound alone can never be a permanent fix. Polishing oils and chemical compounds can temporarily fill in those fractured microvoids, creating the illusion of clarity. But they don't remove the damaged material. They don't stop the oxidation. They don't provide UV protection. They are, quite literally, concealer on a wound that needs surgery. Walk into any auto parts store and you'll find an entire wall of headlight restoration kits. Fancy packaging. Bold promises. Prices ranging from $8 to $40. And they all share the same fundamental flaw. Most of these kits use aluminum oxide abrasives, if they include any abrasive at all, combined with a chemical polish and a spray-on topcoat. And here's where the problem lives. Aluminum oxide is a rounded, blocky abrasive. Its particles don't cut, they smear. They push degraded material around without truly leveling the surface at a microscopic scale. Even when these kits do create some initial clarity, why it's fundamentally different from anything you'll find in a retail kit. Silicon carbide is a synthetic abrasive originally developed for industrial machining. It's used to grind hardened steel, shape ceramics, and finish aerospace components. Bringing it to headlight restoration might sound like overkill, but that is exactly the point. What makes silicon carbide exceptional is a property called friability. As silicon carbide particles work against a surface, they don't just dull and smear the way aluminum oxide does. They fracture, breaking along precise crystalline planes to continuously expose razor-sharp new cutting edges. This means you're always working with a fresh, aggressive abrasive that cuts through degraded polycarbonate rather than dragging it around. The result is surgical. Silicon carbide levels the oxidation. You'll start with a coarser grit, typically 400 to 600, to aggressively remove the bulk of the oxidized layer. Then you step up through increasingly finer grits, 800, 1000, 1500, 2000, and finishing at 3000, each stage removing the scratch pattern left by the previous one. Wet sanding with water throughout this process keeps the surface cool, lubricates the cut, and flushes away abraded material so you're never grinding your own debris back into the lens. By the time you reach 3000 grit, the polycarbonate surface is smoother than it has ever been. Cleaner, more optically transparent, and, crucially, structurally ready to bond with the next stage of the process. This is where we cross the line from restoration to permanent protection. This is the step that retail kits don't include, and the reason their results never last. Ceramic coatings were developed for automotive paint protection at a professional detailing level. They are silicon dioxide, SiO2, based products that chemically bond to the substrate they're applied to. Not physically. not through surface tension or weak adhesion. Chemically, at a molecular level, when you apply a ceramic coating to a freshly abraded polycarbonate surface, one that silicon carbide has leveled and cleaned to a near-perfect substrate, the SiO2 molecules infiltrate the microtexture of the surface and cure into a continuous glass-like layer. This layer is inorganic. UV radiation cannot break it down the way it breaks down plastic or acrylic topcoats. It resists chemical degradation, environmental contamination, and the kind of atmospheric oxidation that destroyed the original factory coating. The hardness of a cured ceramic coating is measured on the pencil hardness scale, and quality coatings achieve 9H, the hardest rating. That's harder than the polycarbonate beneath it. You're giving your headlight lens an entirely new outer shell that is structurally superior to what the factory originally applied. And the clarity this delivers is not a temporary chemical fill that mimics transparency. The ceramic layer itself is optically clear, with refractive properties that enhance light transmission rather than scattering it. Your headlight doesn't just look restored. It performs better than new. Here's exactly what you need, and exactly what you do. Mask everything around the headlight with 2 to 3 inches of painter's tape to protect your paint. Then, starting with 400 grit silicon carbide wet-dry sandpaper, begin wet sanding in tight, consistent linear strokes, horizontal only in this phase. Keep the surface wet. Keep your pressure even. You'll watch the haze physically come off as a milky slurry. That's oxidized polycarbonate leaving the lens. Let it happen. Work through each grit, 600, 800, 1000, 1500, 2000, and finally 3000, spending approximately 3 to 5 minutes per grit, alternating your stroke direction by 90 degrees with each new grit so you can visually confirm you've removed the previous scratch pattern. Rinse thoroughly between grits. After 3000, the lens will look hazy from a fine scratch pattern. That's completely normal. Apply a polishing compound by hand or machine to refine the surface to optical clarity. Then, and this step is non-negotiable, ensure the lens is completely dry, clean, and free of any oils or residue before coating. Apply your ceramic coating in thin, overlapping passes using a foam applicator. Let it flash, typically 60 to 90 seconds depending on temperature and humidity, until you see a light rainbow haze form on the surface. Then buff it off with a clean, dry microfiber. Work one section at a time. Allow 24 hours of cure time before the vehicle is exposed to water. What you'll have on the other side is a headlight lens that is genuinely, demonstrably better than the day it left the factory. Every other method is a delay. A polishing oil, a spray kit, a foam pad, and a chemical compound. They're all buying time on a surface that needs real intervention. Silicon carbide cuts to the truth of the problem. Ceramic coating seals it permanently. You now have the knowledge, the method, and the materials list to do this correctly, once, and never do it again. If this breakdown gave you what you needed, hit that subscribe button because we go this deep on every topic. Drop your questions in the comments. What grit did you start with? What coating did you use? Let's build on this together. Drive with clarity. Drive with confidence.